Imagine the largest spectacle in human history, bigger than the Olympics, bigger than the Super Bowl, a tournament watched by more than half the population of planet Earth. Now, what if I told you that the organization controlling this event handed its most massive, most lucrative tournament ever to a country where, for the better part of a century, the sport was treated like an afterthought? In the summer of 2026, the FIFA World Cup will look unlike anything we've ever witnessed. 48 nations, 104 matches, a sprawling geographic footprint across North America, with the vast majority of the weight falling directly on the United States. It is a logistical leviathan. But beneath the celebrations, the hype, and the confetti of the winning bid, a lingering question remains. Why America? Why did a Swiss-based organization, deeply entrenched in European and South American tradition, choose a nation that still calls the sport by the wrong name to host the defining tournament of the modern era? The official answer is infrastructure. The official answer is convenience. But what happened behind the closed doors of international football politics tells a very different, much darker story. To understand the 2026 World Cup, you have to rewind to the most catastrophic days of the organization that created it. May 27, 2015. The luxury Bau au Lac Hotel in Zurich, Switzerland. Dawn is breaking. Suddenly, Swiss police, acting on an unprecedented FBI indictment from the United States, storm the lobby. They drag some of the most powerful men in global football out from under their high thread count sheets, hiding their faces behind bedsheets. The arrests sent a shockwave through the world. Decades of bribery, wire fraud, and money laundering tied directly to the awarding of World Cup tournaments were suddenly front-page news. FIFA was exposed. What investigators uncovered over the next few years completely dismantled the myth of the beautiful game. The old way of doing business, where host nations were decided in smoke-filled back rooms by a tiny, secretive committee exchanging brown paper bags of cash, was dead. Enter Gianni Infantino. In 2016, he took over as the new FIFA president, inheriting a toxic, crumbling empire. Blue-chip sponsors were fleeing. Public trust was practically non-existent. Legal bills were skyrocketing into the hundreds of millions. Infantino wasn't just tasked with fixing football. He was tasked with saving a multi-billion-dollar corporation from complete financial collapse. He needed a win, but more importantly, he needed a bailout. But where do you find a guaranteed financial home run when the whole world is watching your every move? You look at the history books. Let's look at the numbers. To this day, the most attended World Cup in history was held in 1994. The host, the United States. Despite having only 24 teams and 52 matches, the '94 tournament drew nearly 3.6 million fans, a record that miraculously stood against the 32-team tournaments in Germany, South Africa, Brazil, and Russia. But Infantino wasn't just looking at the past. He was looking at a radical, dangerous future. To secure his power, Infantino had campaigned on expanding the World Cup to 48 teams. It was a brilliant political move to secure votes from smaller, developing nations in Africa and Asia who desperately wanted a seat at the table. But mathematically, it created an unprecedented logistical nightmare. Who on earth could actually host a 48-team tournament? Most nations would bankrupt themselves trying to build the infrastructure required to host 104 matches, house 48 base camps, and transport millions of fans. Brazil spent an estimated $15 billion for the 2014 World Cup, leaving behind crumbling, abandoned stadiums in the Amazon rainforest. Qatar spent a staggering sum, estimated by some up to $220 billion, building entire cities, metro systems, and air-conditioned stadiums from scratch in the desert. Infantino knew FIFA couldn't afford another public relations disaster of white elephant stadiums. He needed a country that didn't have to build a single thing. This is where the American sports machine entered the chat. The United States has something no other country on the planet possesses: the National Football League. Because of the NFL, America is littered with billion-dollar, state-of-the-art stadiums capable of seating 70,000 to 90,000 people. Cherry World in Dallas, MetLife in New Jersey, SoFi in Los Angeles. These weren't just stadiums. They were pre-built cash registers. The United bid, a a coalition of the US, Mexico, and Canada, promised FIFA exactly what it needed to hear. They didn't sell passion, they sold math. They projected an eye-watering $14 billion in revenue and an astonishing $11 billion in pure profit for FIFA. But this was only the beginning. The biggest obstacle was still hidden in plain sight. There was deep, lingering resentment among international soccer executives toward the United States. Remember those 2015 FBI raids? The U.S. Department of Justice had humiliated FIFA on the global stage. Many voters within the organization wanted to punish America for exposing their corruption. Furthermore, the United States was still nursing a bitter wound. Back in 2010, the U.S. bid team, backed by former President Bill Clinton, went to Zurich, fully expecting to be awarded the 2022 World Cup. Instead, they lost to Qatar, a nation smaller than Connecticut. The Americans left humiliated, fully realizing the game had been rigged against them. That humiliation planted the seed for an unstoppable, ruthless corporate campaign for 2026. U.S. soccer executives like Carlos Cordero knew they had to navigate a minefield of bruised egos. Because of the corruption scandals, FIFA had stripped the hosting vote away from a tiny executive committee and gave it to all 200-plus member nations. The vote was now public. They had a formidable challenger. Morocco was offering a beautiful, culturally rich, romantic vision for the tournament. They were a true footballing nation, but they would need to build or renovate almost every single stadium. They were promising a fraction of the profit the Americans were offering. Put yourself in the shoes of a FIFA executive representing a small island nation or a developing country in 2018. Your organization's global revenue funds your local pitches, your youth academies, your national teams. If your entire empire was balancing on a knife's edge, would you risk it on a romantic underdog? Or would you bet on the cold, hard, guaranteed billions of the American market? What investigators and financial analysts noted next changed everything. The decision wasn't just about stadium tickets, it was about survival in a rapidly changing media landscape. The U.S. media market is the most lucrative in the world. Soccer, for decades mocked as the sport of the future in America, had quietly become the sport of the present. Millennials and Generation Z in the United States were consuming European football at unprecedented rates. Premier League broadcasts on American weekend mornings were drawing millions. FIFA realized that to secure the next 50 years of their monopoly, they couldn't just have a presence in the United States. They had to fully conquer it. The United bid flew across the world, meeting with smaller football associations. Their message was simple, direct, and heavily weaponized. The massive profits generated in American stadiums will trickle down to you. They used American capitalism for global football diplomacy. When the vote finally happened in Moscow on June 13, 2018, the tension in the room was suffocating. Every federation cast their ballot in the open. The result was a landslide. The United bid crushed Morocco, 134-65. The world hadn't voted for American soccer culture. They had voted for their own survival. They voted for the highest possible payout in the history of the sport. What does this mean for the future of the game? The 2026 World Cup will be a spectacle unlike anything we have ever witnessed. Millions of fans will pack into colossal American stadiums. Billions more will watch on screens across the globe. Records will shatter. Revenues will soar into the stratosphere, firmly re-establishing FIFA's total dominance over global sports. But as the opening whistle blows in the summer of 2026, and the fireworks light up the American sky, take a moment to look past the pitch. Look at the luxury VIP suites, the exclusive broadcast rights, the billion-dollar corporate sponsorships. America wasn't chosen to host the world's biggest party just because it had the space. It was chosen to save the organization that threw it. The beautiful game has always been driven by the passion of the fans, but its future is strictly business.